Welcome to Marketing Brew Weekly, the show where we chat about everything that's surprising and delighting the marketing world this week. I'm Jenny Mywin, reporter here at Marketing Brew.
I'm Kelsey Sutton, editor.
And I'm Katie Hicks, senior reporter.
Today, we've got news out of Advertising Week about Amex, yet another AI development, and the Oscars for Instagram. Ready? Let's go. Okay, so everyone is talking about some WNBA drama that we actually have to roll the tape on for you guys to hear to believe. But basically, Minnesota Lynx player Nafisa Collier had some remarks for the commissioner of the league that kind of relates to how brand deals to play into all of it. So here, have a listen.
I also asked how she planned to fix the fact that players like Caitlin, Angel, and Paige, who are clearly driving massive revenue for the league, are making so little for their first 4 years. Her response was, Caitlin should be grateful she makes $16 million off the court, because without the platform that the WNBA gives her, she wouldn't make anything. And in that same conversation, she told me players should be on their knees thanking their lucky stars for the media rights deal that I got them.
Wow, spicy comments here.
Just to get this right, so the commissioner basically said, you have us to thank for your brand deals?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically, Nafisa said that in a conversation that she had with the commissioner, she was saying that the players wouldn't be able to have the multi-million-dollar brand deals that they have without the platform of the WNBA, which, especially thinking about the players that she called out, Caitlin Clark in particular, is a little bit wild because a player like Caitlin Clark was arguably a lot more famous in college. She had brand deals through NIL while she was playing that then brought a lot of attention to the WNBA. So it is just a kind of crazy thing to say so blatantly.
Yeah, Caitlin Clark came in with a Nike sponsorship, Gatorade. She was working with a bunch of brands before she was an official WNBA player.
Same with Angel Reese, for sure. And I think the thing that's so funny about this is the WNBA as a league has benefited so much from the brands of the individual players who, like Caitlin Clark, like Angel Reese, who have gotten into the league and are playing and leveling up that brand awareness. And Kathy Engelbert is the name of the WNBA commissioner, and she basically was like, yeah, it's not exactly what I said, but didn't exactly deny that that's... She basically said that it was sort of a mischaracterization, but I feel like this is just such a wild thing to say. The athletes, I'm a pro athlete here, pro worker. They are bringing so much attention to the league, and I just think that it's a pretty wild thing to say. The brand interest is coming in to the league in part because of the attention and the brand interest in the players themselves, in my opinion.
Totally. And I feel like it's something she kind of acknowledged. She was like, yes, of course the players have brought so much to the league, but my employees and myself have been working really hard to get here too. And it's of course, there's work coming from all sides, but it seems like the league might be feeling pretty hot coming off of this 11-year deal that they just signed with Versant. So there is an undeniable increased attention on the WNBA, but I think it's pretty bad faith to not acknowledge that the impact of the players themselves is a really big part of that as well.
It's a chicken versus the egg debate here. But yeah, I do feel like the players like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese have really reinvigorated interest in the WNBA. So I don't know. I think the commissioner should maybe be a little careful about angering them.
Yeah. At this point, though, the players are working on negotiating a collective bargaining agreement. And there's been a lot of conversation about how should WNBA players be compensated. Obviously, brand deals bring in a lot of revenue for sort of the top tier players. But then the question remains, what happens to everybody else who's playing in the league? There's lots of talented athletes who are in that league. And so that is sort of what I think we'll all be kind of keeping an eye on.
Very spicy.
Yeah, definitely. Before we get into the next topic, we want to talk about the sponsor of today's episode, which is Digicom.
Digicom is a digital marketing agency that works with e-com brands including Mind Body Green, Ever Eaten, and David's Toothpaste. They use scientific created testing and multi-channel executions to get 10x level breakthroughs on ad platforms like Meta, Google, TikTok, Outbrain, and Taboola.
So what Digicom actually does is they really kind of plug in as a brand's head of growth, and they handle things like budgeting and planning. They can do creative production for paid ads using your assets, and they can even do media buying, which is pretty wild. But first, before they do all that, they will conduct a audit to map the metrics that matter for a brand, whether that's things like hook rate, watch time, click-through rate, conversion, or revenue.
For our Marketing Brew listeners, that's you. Digicom is offering a free, no BS paid media audit. They'll spend 10 plus hours diving into Meta and Google, do creative testing, and look for ways to optimize your conversion rate before giving you a 90-day action plan.
To get your brand's free paid media audit, go to digicom.io/brew. Again, that's digicom.io/brew. Do you guys have American Express cards?
I'm not an Amex girl, but I am a Chase girl. But I know people are loyal to the Amex brand.
I am pretty loyal to my Amex Gold.
Yeah.
I got to eat a lot.
I'm pretty loyal to my Amex Gold too. And American Express is doing something kind of interesting, announced this week. They are getting into the commerce media game. So this was announced earlier this week during Advertising Week, which is happening in New York. So they are officially entering the commerce media game. What this means is that Amex Ads is the name of the product. It will give brands access to inventory on Amex-owned sites. So wherever you as an Amex member are looking for travel deals or things like that, there is a lot of ad inventory, display ad inventory, and Amex Ads is really opening this up. But I think it's not really about the inventory, it's really about the data that's going to be powering this. So companies with first-party data of all stripes have really been building out ad platforms, and American Express is going to take consumer data, all the data of all the restaurants you've ever eaten at, Katie, all the trips you've taken, all of
the random purchases I've made.
Yes, exactly.
They know too much about us.
Yeah. They do. They know so much about consumer habits, and they're going to use that to power and target those ads. So before we get into what this means, what do you guys think?
I mean, immediately as a consumer, I'm like, panic. Why is there so much of my information out there? But for an advertiser, that's super valuable data, right? It's like everything that someone has ever bought on their Amex. Like I like to max out the amount of points that I can get on my credit card. So I'm putting literally everything on my credit card. So it's like everything that someone has ever purchased is such valuable data to then target their advertising around. So to the advertiser, what an appealing product.
I mean, they know where you've bought stuff. They know what location, like where you live, basically. They know everything about you. But what's interesting to me about this is I feel like they're kind of late to the game in a way. Like, I feel like we've seen so many retail media networks roll out in the last few years. And I think Chase released their own last year. So, yeah, I mean.
So you're already being.
I am already being tracked and targeted. So
That's right.
Add it to the list.
Yep.
Yeah, and you're right, Katie. There's so many companies that have been doing this. Costco actually rolled out its own ad network last year too, but
every hot dog I've ever bought.
honestly, retailer, financial services firm, you name it, they've probably are doing this or are thinking about doing it. Target, Walmart, Sam's Club, Best Buy, Kroger, they're all kind of branching into advertising. I think the thing that's so interesting here is that you don't really think of those companies as advertisers. And of course, they are thinking, how do we figure out more ways to, I think for a lot of the retailers, it's sort of like, how do we Amazonify ourselves a little bit? So retail media, you think about, it's like, okay, if I go into Target and then I get an ad for something while I'm shopping, that, Target has data about me, and then their Target, somebody has paid them to reach me so that maybe I buy it through that. But I think that as we see a lot of privacy legislation that's coming out, that's making kind of regular digital media a little bit of a question mark, whether that's statewide or federally, although there hasn't been a ton of movement federally. Companies are saying, okay, well, first-party data, you've opted in. You're a consumer. You've said, I agree to be tracked in exchange for this.
Whether you know it or not.
whether you know it or not, really. And so they are looking at that trove of data, and it really is kind of a treasure trove, and they're figuring out, how do we monetize this? How do we make this attractive? And I think a lot of advertisers are playing ball. They're saying, okay, I want to target somebody who I know is going to spend $5,000 on a vacation every year. And I know that they go in September every year because that's what their Amex data says, or that's what, that's what I can kind of glean from all this information that we have from them. And it's owned by that financial services firm instead of them selling it to somebody else who's then a data broker. And then it's like all of this.
All the third-party services getting in the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Something that I'm kind of curious about, because I did actually do some reading on what Chase was already doing as a Chase card owner myself, is that I think Chase's ad network will let advertisers see like the categories that someone is spending and purchasing and interested in, but they won't reveal like the actual specific brands that they are buying, which is like a lot more specific and does make me feel a little bit better that like there's a little bit of layer there. I'm curious if Amex will follow a similar route, or if like they might go a little bit more granular. I feel like that is such valuable data to like, imagine if you were, I don't know, a beauty brand that's like, oh, I know that this person has bought my competitor before, so like I'm gonna lean really hard on them, or I'm just gonna like not even try because like they're already like fully bought into my competitor. That is like even deeper of a level that presumably credit card companies do have access to that data, and it's interesting to see what they do with it.
Well, and I'm sure advertisers want that data, but from a consumer perspective, I feel like the opacity works in the brand's favor in this instance because, yeah, I wouldn't know if Chase was collecting exact brands that I was shopping at versus just categories. Who knows what Kroger's collecting on people, you know? I mean, I'm sure somebody knows, but not me. And I'm wondering like how some of these brands are just like, you know, to what extent are they collecting info? Because yeah, we really don't know that much on the surface level.
Yeah. I think the thing that's important to remember here is that for the purpose of an advertiser, like you, Jenna, you, Katie, individually are like not that valuable. But like the category that you represent, the demographics that you represent, where you are, household income, age, propensity to buy beauty products, that's who they want. Right. So like you're going to fit into that bucket. But I think that that's kind of the magic, is actually distilling the data down into something that's actually like useful to an advertiser, because an advertiser doesn't necessarily want to target you. Just you.
Yeah.
Because it's like, we think you're very important, but ultimately
not that important.
Right. Like, but if you are one of 100,000 consumers who they are thinking, okay, you're probably going to buy you're going to spend $65 on beauty products in the next 3 months. That's what they want. You know what I mean? I do think, this is so interesting. Like, this is such a growing space, and it's something we are paying so much attention to. WPP Media estimates that commerce-driven ad revenue is going to reach $170 billion globally this year. They expect that's going to actually surpass TV ad revenue, which is, of course, long been like the stalwart of ad spend, because it's big, it's bold, and it's expensive. And so it's no wonder that Amex is getting into this game. It's no wonder that all these companies they're chasing a piece of that $170 billion pie. Something that also came out of Advertising Week is that Duolingo is not getting, it's opening up its app for a direct ads offering. It's usually worked with like DSPs to get programmatic ads placed into their app, but they're rolling out a direct thing too. So I feel like we're just going to see a lot of brands going direct. You know what I mean? Like, what do I have to offer? And I'm going to offer that directly. I'm not going to go through third-party intermediaries, because if you go through the middleman, you have to pay the middleman.
You don't get the cash. Yeah. Cutting them out of the equation entirely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's switch gears a little bit to another big trend in the industry. I want to talk about, unfortunately, AI. But Katie, you want to give us a rundown about Sora 2?
Yeah, so last week we talked a little bit about Meta's Vibes app, which was their AI-generated app in their Meta app on the App Store. But not long after we talked about that, OpenAI unveiled its latest AI-generated video app, Sora 2, which is now available for select few if you have an invite code on the App Store, but it's already at number 1. What have you guys seen about Sora 2?
Well, first of all, we love exclusivity. Like, what a way to drive up that demand. People are like, yes, I have to be in on the new AI app. I have seen some uncanny content, to put it nicely, but that's kind of how I feel about most AI content. I don't know, Kelsey, what have you seen?
Yeah, so this is like a TikTok style text to video thing, and I think ultimately the stranger thing, like, it's just been very, very odd. People are sort of going wild with it. Ultimately, if you can type anything in and it will spit out a video, people are like, what won't it do? And I feel like we're seeing the results of
People are really
of that.
Yeah, testing the limits. I mean, we've seen, like, I don't know, just thinking back, I've seen a video of Pikachu at war. There was a video of SpongeBob making meth that went kind of viral.
It was sort of like a Breaking Bad type.
Yeah.
Just raises a lot of questions about brand safety and if some of these like owners of these IPs are going to take action.
Yeah, I feel like it's really interesting because it's like there's always some concern about IP and brand, like who owns the rights to content in an AI context ever. But yeah, with like putting it on like a TikTok like short form content app, I feel like, and encouraging people to be like, oh, make your like little like text to video prompts and content, like only encourages that use even more. So it's like, yeah, people will probably go into their idea trove of like things that they grew up with, like SpongeBob. And then it's like, oh, the creators of SpongeBob probably don't want him being associated with cooking meth. Like that is just not brand safe.
I mean, some people probably just think it's funny too, and they're like, what if I can make SpongeBob do that? And like, you can do it right now on Sora. And like, I think that's going to be a huge headache for OpenAI. I mean, we already know that like the issue of trademark and copyright has been a huge thing with AI to begin with, whether it was like printed materials. Now, you know, we've got video in the mix. So we'll see if some of these places or some of these companies take action. But in the meantime, I mean, again, just brand safety issues. Like I've also seen a video of Sam Altman supposedly robbing a store. It was like fake security footage that someone generated using Sora 2. You could easily have an executive in that position, which raises some questions about like PR problems. Like how do you get ahead of things like that if more of these videos are coming out?
Yeah.
It's just kind of like I don't know. I feel like it's a big problem waiting to happen for some brands.
Yeah, well, and I think, I mean, if going back to the IP, like the SpongeBob of it all, ultimately, you know, we have a lot of big media companies who are bringing, you know, going to court, bringing lawsuits saying this is not appropriate. I think OpenAI has really argued this is fair use, et cetera. And I think we're really going to have to continue to see where that goes. Part of their argument is like, well, if we don't do it, some other company, like in China, will do it, which is, I don't know how well that will hold up in court as the argument, but I just find it so, I find it distressing ultimately, mostly with like the kind of deep fake. Again, you mentioned like the Sam Altman video of using his likeness and then, you know, making a video, making it look like he's caught in a compromising position. You know, there's so many questions about what this actually looks like unleashed into the world. We've been talking about it for a long time, but I think that the primary question for a lot of brands is like, can we do anything to protect our own assets? We've already seen, I mean, Hollywood is really kind of coming out against this. The talent agency, WME, said it's opting its clients out of Sora 2 for now. I don't know. But then again, it's at the top of the App Store. People clearly are interested in it. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's like, oh, well, people like it, so just
we gotta
do whatever
do
we
it.
They might just be experimenting with it. I don't know. Yeah, maybe once they see the horrors that you can make with it, maybe they opt out. But yeah, people are definitely at least curious.
Right. There's definitely like a pressure, I feel like, for brands to always be at like the speed of culture and like be doing what consumers are doing and being where their audience is. So it's like if your specific audience is on Sora 2, like is there a pressure for you to show up as a brand there? Does that mean like making your own AI content about your own brands? Are you participating in meme culture? It's an emerging platform. So like who knows like what the vibe will be on there. But it is definitely like a thorny place to be if you're concerned about brand safety at all. Also, it's really, I feel like the way that brands are taking on AI is very interesting to me in general, because generally, I think one of our colleagues, Christina Monlos, talked to someone who said that most of the time the reason for brands using AI is efficiency. But what happens when efficiency like spits out bad content that
or
like
creates like a whole other problem.
Yeah,
right?
so it's kind of not worth it if that's what's happening.
We saw this with the Taylor Swift album rollout this past weekend. There were some videos where she was promoting, I think, just like a secret message by sending it out to different demographics, like different cities. It was like, Barcelona, here's your video. And people are finding mistakes in the videos that are all animated and saying, you know, this looks like AI. It looks a little sloppy. There are like hands going through paper. There was a treadmill that had a mop button on it. Just things that didn't make sense and that no graphic designer or animator would have put in there. So it caused people to be really upset about it. They were like, you know, you fought for your own IP all these years with your albums, and now you're kind of using AI, which is stealing from other artists' work just to generate this content. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a thorny issue. I feel like brands don't always, they might be saving time and money in creating the content, but is it worth the backlash? I don't know.
I feel like the way that brands always talk about using AI too is like, oh, like we'll use it in idea generation, or like, well, we still like care about like the human touch. And it's like, if stuff is making it through like that, then maybe the human touch is not nearly there as
Strong
much
enough.
as we're saying it is. And B, is it actually any more efficient if like you're using it to create the content, but then it's creating mistakes, so you have to send a real person in there to fix it, which like might be a whole new skill set of like learning how to fix AI's mistake rather than just like making the content correctly the way that you wanted it from a real human being's skills the first time around, which might take longer, but like, does it all even out? Does it all kind of actually fall more towards the human work side? That's something to consider.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, one of the things that we have seen, though, is that, like, this is coming. There's no escaping it. The Interactive Advertising Bureau periodically will poll digital ad buyers or decision makers in the industry, and they found that 90% of digital ad buyers that they surveyed are either planning to or already are using generative AI tools of some form, not necessarily Sora or Sora 2. There are lots of options on the marketplace right now, but are using generative AI tools to make digital video ads in particular. I think that this update indicates just how powerful these tools can be and how enticing they might be to somebody who's looking at their budget and going, okay, we really don't have a big budget for this, so we need to have something splashy, or, oh my gosh, I have to do this in a week. We don't have time to actually film something real or make something real. But I really feel like this is such a shortcut, and I think that we've kind of seen, as, again, Christina wrote a great story about AI use, and one of the challenges is that it seems to always be a backlash cycle. You know, there are a lot of people who care that they are seeing things that are real. They don't want to feel tricked or duped by a brand. That is bad brand, like a bad relationship to build with a customer if they feel like they were tricked into watching something they maybe wouldn't have, or that they think they're watching something real and then there's a clue that was AI generated. There is a level of, I think, perceived deception. It almost feels deceptive. Even if you say created with AI, somebody might not like that. And we've seen that J. Crew had some AI generated content for a catalog that was received very poorly.
Coca-Cola last year.
Coca-Cola put out, yes, do you remember that? It was
Toys
like
R Us too.
Yeah, it was like a holiday ad
Which I feel like is like
campaign.
one of their like iconic campaigns, like the Coke holidays. Like it's very like jolly and happy, and then when you put AI into it, it kind of gives it a different feeling.
Yeah, well, I think it kind of loses the charm. Again, part of it is like, I like watching things that people made. And I think when you bringing up the Taylor Swift point is so interesting, Katie, because it's like, that is like, we've also seen it with film. I think A24 made some AI generated ads for promoting one of their
for Civil
videos
War.
for Civil
Yep.
War. And there was such a backlash. People were saying, you are an arts, like you are purporting to be creating art.
Yeah.
And same with Taylor Swift. So, and I think AI feels very antithetical.
A little hypocritical, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think that it's thorny for so many reasons, but I think unfortunately it's like, and it's only going to kind of continue. The slop will continue to flow.
I will say though, I feel like yes, you are risking this backlash cycle, but is something like the Sora 2 app becoming popular and desired and maybe more ubiquitous amongst like the consumer level make it more acceptable potentially later on to consumers seeing AI usage from the brands that they follow or like? It's like if you are personally using AI just to like mess around and have fun and make your little SpongeBob meth videos, like then who are you to turn around and hold like the brands that you like to engage with to a higher standard, because it's kind of just becoming normalized in everyday life. So it's like, okay, of course, if I'm using AI, like why wouldn't the brands that I like use AI?
I think there's an element that like the more imperceptible it becomes when it's AI generated, the more people will accept it. I feel like part of why there's been such backlash is there's an uncanny valley aspect to some of these ads. We've seen this like riding the subway, there's a Skechers ad campaign. I feel like every time I've seen this, there's graffiti on it being like AI. And it's partially because the cartoons are just kind of weird.
Yes.
They're just a little unsettling. I don't know. There's an element of it where you're just kind of like, I don't know what this was trained on, but it feels inappropriate to look at the Skechers ad.
Yeah.
So I think like if the art was done well and people couldn't tell it was AI, there'd be less backlash.
It's hard
which is
to
like
be mad when you don't know what's there to be mad
Right.
at. Yeah.
it's when the errors are very glaring that people, I feel like, or the artistry is very obviously generated that people get angry.
Yeah. But then again, that I feel like brings up the ethical question of
Right,
like, should you disclose if you're using these tools? And I think there are some people who are saying, yeah, you should. Don't make me look at something that I don't want to look at.
Yeah. Maybe we'll reach a point where like a disclosure will be enough for you to feel good about like what actually happened here. But if it looks good, if the quality is there, then like it'll be okay. But I don't think we're quite there yet.
I know Sora 2 has some watermarks on it, but I do wonder, how obvious is it going to be as the stuff gets more advanced if something is AI generated, and we'll have to watch for that.
Yeah. Well, I also have to wonder if AI creators will be eligible for the next thing we have to talk about, which is a new award from Meta called Rings, which is kind of like an Oscars award ceremony for creators. Basically, 25 creators will be receiving rings, both physical and digital, which is very interesting. The physical element will be like a golden, like nicely designed ring, and then the digital element will be a golden digital ring that goes around like your profile icon.
Is this like a ring light, like a play on that?
Kind of, yeah. But like typically if you think about your Instagram profile, it has like that like pink orange gradient around it, or like green if you're like posting to your close friends. But if you get selected, you'll have this golden ring around your profile, and then you'll also be able to customize your profile. So you'll be able to like change the background color of your Instagram profile, and I think mess with like the like icon, which is kind of fun, and also kind of gives like MySpace page, like putting music on your page, making it more personalized and making that like part of an award is very fun. But it is a totally brand new award, and I do have questions because in their announcement, the graphic that they used really gives horror movie.
It looks like The Ring.
Yes, which I did have to Google because it's been a while since I've like looked at the Ring poster, but it is like very obviously a play on the Ring itself, which doesn't quite make sense to me.
I feel like that kind of will discourage some creators from submitting. They might be like, hey, sorry, I'm not a horror creator. I'm not making spooky content.
Yeah, so I have so many questions about this. The Hollywood Reporter had this story exclusively, and the art, it's, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's sort of black background, there's the big gold ring, but then it's like
the font
kind of the drippy, I want to call it chiller font, but it's not, it's just kind of like drippy and spooky.
It's like skinny writing, like someone could have like scratched it out.
And then there's a list at the very bottom of some of the judges, and it almost looks like a movie poster, which I thought was such an interesting choice, but the judges are kind of at the bottom, almost looking like the credits.
I just feel like if I was going to make an ode to a movie in this instance, I would have done Lord of the Rings, maybe, perhaps, instead of a horror movie.
There's got to be a better choice. Well, it's interesting because it's interesting you call it a movie poster, Kelsey, because I do think that like they're going for an air of like legitimacy and like a high honor and something calling like the Oscars.
Calling it Oscars for creators, or kind of describing it as such, again, kind of gives it this is an art, this is a, very intentional, like Hollywood adjacent sort of thing.
Right. And it is reflected in some of the judges that are actually included too. Spike Lee being one of them. Rugby star Ilona Maher, who's not like she kind of represents the opposite of Spike Lee. Like she's like very much creator, but she's in the sports world, which has its own type of prestige. Makeup artist Pat McGrath, who like makeup is very much its own art form. Marc Jacobs, actress Yara Shahidi. So kind of a wide variety, but definitely representing like kind of prestigious areas themselves. And they're all just judging like creativity, which is such a wide term. Yeah. So I'm very curious to see like who will end up being selected and what they will represent as well.
I think something that's so challenging about this is that think about the Oscars. Okay, there's only a set number of movies that can feasibly come out and sort of, compete for a select number of awards.
In a single year.
Yeah. So that just, count up the number of gigabytes of data of those movies compared to
every
the
real
millions.
Yeah.
Right. You're posting, I mean, again, okay, a movie's 2.5 hours long, but like if you're posting 3 reels a day, and then it's
like every creator that's on the app.
How many people are on Instagram? 3 billion.
Literally, yes. And I think like that adds up to like billions and billions more of content because everyone is posting more than one thing a day probably.
Right. And I think because of that, there is an immense amount of creativity in digital video. And I don't mean to undermine that at all, but just the sheer amount of content to actually sort through and actually determine. And also, I think that something we hear about from creators in the course of our reporting is like, it's really hard to be creative when you have to post like 10 videos a day. You're kind of like, okay, we're just doing what we can, like throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks, etc. And so maybe what this will incentivize is will some creators slow down and really go, okay, I want to try to do something really unique, really inventive. And again, a lot of creators are doing that at the moment, but the pressures are just so different. So I just kind of wonder what that will look like. Who will be acknowledged? Will up-and-comers get acknowledged? Or will it be some of the big stars who everybody sort of already knows?
The Alex Earls of the world. Yeah.
I think my big question is, what's the value of this award? Is it going to be a way to like get advertiser interest? Is it going to be a way to like legitimize your platform? Will you get more followers as a result of having this award? Or is this ultimately just kind of like a PR play?
Yeah.
Because we know that there are plenty of those types of awards out there.
Yeah. Ultimately, I do love an award ceremony though, and if they do something fun with it, I will be tuning in. So I have hopes, I suppose. I don't know if the hopes are high, but they're there.
They're there.
They're there. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. And if you want to tell us the craziest piece of content you've seen out of Sora 2, or really anything else, send us an email at mkbw@morningbrew.com, which you can also find in the show notes. And we'll see you here next week.